Hey people, it's Nias talking. Now I'm just gonna continue on from where we left off on the other video. So here it goes. It was basically a farming society. A superficial or even a non-expert look at the reddish brown soil will lead one to think that this would or could not be a land for a flourishing agriculture. It gives the lie to my description of what in appearance seemed to be unproductive land in other parts of the continent. Hard brown soil robbed of its topsoil and moisture. Here in the Mossi states, just about everything grew. Cotton, millet, wheat, corn, peppers, yams, rice, peanuts, cola, nuts, onions, tobacco, etc. The industries include tanning, fine leather works, cloth making, basketry, straw hats, iron, lead, and antimony, copperware, mats, jars, pots, pans, soaps, and dried fish. And see, this is proof of what people have always been saying. That people keep saying black people did not create a civilization, they don't create anything, they're not smart. That here, in this place, which ostensibly looks like a place that's not good for anything, they made a civilization. It's like my son once said in that I'm Not Racist remix, you gave us lemons, but we make lemonade. All this production meant that 6 caravan routes that crisscrossed the country were the highways for a private export and import trade. They imported salt, coffee, tea, perfumes, carpets, fine robes, and other things needed, such as needles, which they themselves did not produce. Cotton and cotton cloth seemed to lead in the Mossi export made for trade for a very long time. Honey was also an important part of the market trade, but I do not know whether it was found wild in abundance or was derived from a cultivated beehive industry. There were taxes levied on all trading transactions, on caravan transports through the country to other lands, and on foreign traders in the local markets throughout the country. The people paid an income tax in the form of a percentage of farm produce at harvest time or other commodities. The Europeans have been hearing about this prosperous land that barred whites from entering since the 15th century. Attempts have been made by various European travelers and traders to get inside this interior country for several centuries. All without success. Some sought permission just to pass through, but again, no success. Even the usual white strategy of contacting and forming friendly relations with possible heirs to the throne and distant factions did not succeed. Even though Arabs and Europeans were increasingly based in all the surrounding countries during the 19th century. It was during the 19th century, however, that the Mossi exclusion of foreigners became less rigid, and it became a gradual relaxation of restrictions, especially of Muslim traders. Some were allowed to settle, and while it is true that the vanguard were black Muslims for the now wholly Islamized neighboring black states, they paved the way in a smoother for their white Muslim brothers. Moreover, an increasing number of young modern Muslim Mossi leaders began to consider the age-old policy of excluding whites as unenlightened, if not downright uncivilized. What did the great military power, the greatest in Africa, have to fear from a few white faces in the land? But what about the great prophecy? When the first white man appeared in the land, the nation would die. Nothing in Mossi land was better known and more universally believed than this prophecy. It was backed up because early Africans regarded white as evil in itself. Still, the young moderns could declare the prophecy to be just another old saying, manifestly untrue, because some Arabs had been admitted into the country long ago, and the nation still lived stronger than ever, so it seemed. Now, I want to take a moment and give some commentary. Now, I know I have people who call themselves Hebrew Israelites who follow the Bible. Now, this is proof of what is often said, that the punishment that God constantly, how would I say it? The bad things that happen to black people is often a result of disobeying the Lord. Now, again, that's just a theory, but going with the Hebrew Israelite theory of the Bible and breaking the covenant with God, and if you take this, where the Mossi broke their own covenant or their prophecy, it's an interesting theory. So, again, I'm not saying any of these things are true, but I'm just putting it out there for those of you who are interested. Meanwhile, Europeans were closing in on the continent and had the Mossi states surrounded, the British on the Gold Coast and in Ashanti to the south, the Germans next door in Togoland, while the French were passing down from the north and the Ivory Coast on the west. All had their agents busy gathering as much data as they could about this powerful and overly proud black nation. At first, these agents had to operate from the outside. Dupur from Ashanti, Coel from Sierra Leone, and Cross from Togoland. There were many others. Cross, a German in Togoland, was supposed to be the first European to slip into the country with a caravan. The great prophecy was now about to be fulfilled, almost precisely. The first white European had entered the country. The next white man came in boldly in 1888, backed by the supreme powers of the French Empire, albeit called Republic. The emissary of conquest was Louis Binga. He came to place the country under the protection of France. Again, this arrogance, like, this country's been doing this fine, and now he's saying, well, you need protection. Sort of like the mafia. He met a strong leader, a strong black African leader, that's just me saying it, still ready to fight in the Mogo Naba Sanum. He rejected the proffered French protectorate as a ruse for conquest, resented Binga's haughty and disrespectful attitude, and ordered him out of the country at once. You see, whenever they come to an African nation, they don't have any respect. They automatically treat, doesn't matter how powerful they are, the African nation is or rich, they automatically treat it as beneath them, and then they wonder, why do everybody not like us and want us to go away? The Mogo Naba knew that at that very moment, German troops were marching towards his borders. Bigger, real importance in the history of African people, however, was reaffirmation of the white man's unchanging attitude towards the blacks. Said he, I feel that a white man traveling in this country, whoever he may be, should not prostrate himself before a black king, however powerful the latter may be. He was not expected to do this. It is necessary that a white man should inspire respect and consideration wherever he goes. They should come as masters, italics added, as the superior class of the society, and not have to bow their heads before indigenous chiefs to whom they are definitely superior in all respects. In short, and in even plainer language, the lowest white scum of Europe, the most depraved, are nevertheless the superiors of the greatest black king, the Caucasian creed. It is a creed for destruction and death. Millions have already died for it, and because of it, how many millions more? The future holds this secret. Meanwhile, the 1888 German army, under von Francois, halted at the Mossi border. The great Zonga Gongos, war drums, had sounded throughout Mossiland and easily reached the ears of the German forces. They were not fools. The death-defying Mossi armies were as well known as were their industries and flourishing trade. The Germans also knew that the Mossi forces were waiting for them, probably impatiently, under personal command of the Chancellor himself, Minister for War. One may wonder why von Francois did not realize even before leaving Togoland garrisons how foolhardy he would be to invade the country of the Mossi. In any event, he turned his forces back, and first avoided certain annihilation. The fact is that neither of the three great powers contending for Mossiland wanted to risk its forces in armed combat with these blacks. Another stratagem was adopted. A war of attrition. Hit these fighting blacks where it would hurt them most. Weaken them within by destroying their great international caravan routes. Throw the country into an economic panic. The British, the French, the Germans all participated in the great conspiracy. While the war against the Mossi commenced, commerce was quietly pushed. The friendly missions of the Mogo Naba went forward one after another. This was easy now. After the death of Sanum, his weaker and more European-minded brother became Mogo Naba. Had it not been for a stronger and not so trusting council, he would have been taken in more easily. The wide use of black agents, usually mulattoes, and I want to draw attention to Colin Kaepernick, okay, I want you to think about this, continued to be the white man's secret weapon in becoming masters of the black world. When the blacks were on top, they could pose as loyal members of the black race, as many of them were in fact, or they could, having white blood, ally themselves with the whites and serve their interests. The whites have always made this both easy and attractive, not only by emphasizing the superiority of their superiority by blood, but by giving them better education and opportunities than blacks under constant survival pressures could ever hope to achieve. The system became worldwide in dividing the race and creating hostile color bars within it. For since the mulattoes had a better education, therefore higher income than their black half-brothers and sisters, they, like the whites, regarded this superior social and economic status as the index of inherent superiority itself. Here, superiority seemed to be a demonstrated fact of life, not a theory. And that was why the mulatto, or Creole, George Eckham Ferguson from Sierra Leone, now playing the role of a loyal black African, was able not only to reach the Mogo Naba without any trouble, but even to negotiate a treaty on behalf of the British, something that all Europeans had been able to do. The internal situation was changing. The fierce spirit of nationalism that diverted the German Togo threat had somehow declined. Now the shadows lengthened. The whites had also been busily building up and training strong black armies. Blacks trained to hate, kill, and conquer blacks. Blood of blacks was to sprinkle and further darken the pages of their history. The French were the most efficient in this development, the baffling phenomenon of blacks more readily fighting and dying for the white man's cause than they are for their own. Indeed, Africa was conquered for the whites by the blacks, and thereafter kept under colonial control by black police and black soldiers. And I wanted to say something, okay? This is what I've always said. Black people have never ever been defeated in a fair fight, except for traitors, treason, and those who sold them out. Always remember that. This is the lesson that Chancellor Williams is teaching us through black history. This is why colonial history has been, well, why colonial history happened as easily as it did, because of interlopers. No. Very little white blood was ever spilled. Black troops, small staffs of white officers, and a core group of European soldiers. Instructions were strict and brief. Always use the blacks. Keep European forces in reserve or in the rear. And so it was in July 1896, a French lieutenant named Roulet. Actually, I just want to say something. I mean, it's funny what they said about always using the blacks. I mean, I remember when Trump had that ball with veterans' wives, they said that they were all white, despite the fact that 40% of the U.S. Armed Forces is non-white, probably black or brown. Interesting how that works, how these so-called minorities are almost a majority or a plurality of the U.S. Armed Forces. So I want you to think about that. That's why I keep saying that to black people, they just need to pull out of the armed forces because it doesn't work in their interests. Black people have been fighting for America since Crispus Attucks died in the Boston Massacre. The Buffalo Soldiers, the Tuskegee Airmen, the list goes on and on. But it's never been repaid with anything. All right. And so it was that in July 1896, a French lieutenant named Roulet and his staff led a strong army of black cavalry and infantry across the Mossi borders to battle their way to Ouagadougou. The last of the great black states in Africa was now making its last stand on the Mogo Naba. Wabogo, who seemed to grow in courage as his country collapsed all around him. In 1897, the French, unable to secure the surrender of the Mossi leader, who continued to elude them and stage counterattacks, finally appointed a Mogo Naba who would serve them. Mossi guerrillas continued the war from the bush year after year. Long after all hope for victory was gone, they were fighting on just as though they did not know that the first white man had long since come and that, therefore, the nation had died. They fought on because while their empire passed, the deathless Mossi spirit lived on. A witness whereof their own Mogo Naba, the last of the elected line, fought with them, side by side from the bush, and never surrendered to France. Okay, people, so that's the end of this. Now, I hope you've enjoyed this and you learned something. Like I said, if you want to learn more, you can buy The Destruction of Black Civilization. It's by Chancellor William. And also, if you want to learn more about the Mossi, this is a source that Chancellor Williams used. It's E.P. Skinner, E.P. Skinner, the Mossi of the Upper Volta. The Upper Volta, to those who don't know because it's changed its name, is Burkina Faso. Now, I'm going to finish. Please comment, rate, share, and subscribe. If you want to support this channel, I'll leave my PayPal in the description. Thank you.